And welcome to the League of Extraordinary Atheists for Humanism, where we attempt to apply logic and reason to politics and religion. I'm here with my lovely co-host, Christy Santiago,
Hello.
And our wonderful special guest, Kelly of Topic Thunder. Or, as I like to say, Ms. Thunder.
Ms. Thunder. It's my. I love it. It's my spy name. Everybody refers to it. It's very nice because they could just call me Topic or no, but no, it's Miss Thunder. I like it. It's very polite.
Yeah. It's got something to it.
It does.
He was told it by accident as well. I thought, you know what? I haven't told anybody my name. That would probably be very helpful. How else are they going to refer to me?
Yeah. But when I think of Miss Thunder, I always think of the old 90s Ms. Marvel. It's not Miss Marvel, it's Ms. Marvel. So if you go back and look on a Twitter, I think I always put MZ.
Yeah.
I like it.
I thought it was just an American thing. I don't know.
Nope.
Yeah.
It's a comic book reference. You're a comic book reference.
No.
I'm trying to think of catch on. I haven't told you yet.
You're not the only person who's done it. That's what made me think it was an American thing.
Americans do what they want with grammar. That is for sure.
Basically.
Grammar's one thing, but you just, for some reason, you just want to rename everything. I know, we did have that big old fight a couple of 100 years ago, but it just seems spiteful at this point. Around your baseball.
Right.
Just can't let it go.
No, I understand. It's probably very fresh. Yeah. Break up the hard,
It's just that I liked your name so much I had to change it.
Oh, yeah. Shit.
So we're here today to discuss, if you haven't read the bottom of the screen yet, hero worship.
Yes.
Because Kelly made a really interesting video recently. You should definitely go check it out. We'll have it in the description box below.
Mm-hmm.
I need to send it to Natcha. Where she talked about one of her personal celebrity heroes.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was a really, really interesting video. So if you'd like to discuss that a little bit, and then we'll move on to what it really made me think about and why we're here for the whole thing today.
Yeah, well, it's funny. It's my most watched video today. I think it's got over sort of 600 views now. And who would have thought controversy made people want to watch things?
Who knew?
New to me, anyway. But it's not something that I sort of wanted to piggyback on because of the, oh my God, my robot Hoover's just started. 1 second.
Oh, that's fun.
Did she say her robot went off?
I'm pretty sure that's what she said. Which makes it even better. It sounded like a robot.
There's so much further ahead of us.
Okay.
I think that's what she said. I think she said...
It's one of those sort of Roomba things. And
okay.
I have no idea why it started.
I was thinking of this Rosie from...
Roomba.
Trying to destroy me. It's Skynet's happening in my front room right now.
It's Judgment Day.
What is going on? Anyway, how embarrassing. Yes, my robot Hoover has a mind of its own. I call it Robot Hoover. I'm sure it has a proper name. So because obviously it was somebody I admire, and because of the sort of explosive nature of the documentary around, allegations and stuff, it seemed poignant at that point to sort of pick up on it. And it wasn't even the fact of who it was about. It was Michael Jackson, obviously, huge star, may he rest. But he obviously has a history of having these allegations pinned against him. And of course, there was a documentary I think it's shown in about March in the UK regarding fresh allegations of child abuse. And of course, if you're a fan, this is the third time this sort of thing has occurred. And of course, it's on a different scale and level now because the documentary was obviously very graphic, and it was very sort of emotionally poignant and things like that. And I noted in the video how at each point where these allegations have occurred, there's been different levels of media coverage. The first sort of time was in the early 90s, so tabloids had the power. Then in the sort of mid-2000s, when the trial occurred, the news was just on rotation, and it was all very visual. And of course, this time the internet's, had its say. So of course, people were on Twitter and what have you, sort of sharing their thoughts about it. And what I noted, and the reason I say it doesn't necessarily matter who it's about. I mean, obviously, I have a bit of a vested interest in this person, but it was more how quickly people took the documentary and its contents, as graphic as they were, and I did watch it, for absolute truth. And of course, nobody wants to stand there and go, oh yeah, all right then, and these guys are lying. But it just worried, and people who are in the industry of sort of show business and stuff themselves. And I was watching it with my husband, and we were sort of like looking at each other, because we thought, this is some amazing editing. That's going to sound awful, but it was almost theatrical. And for a subject matter that's obviously very delicate and very, visceral, they were almost making it into a theatre. And sort of they would have a poignant moment and then a sunset, and a poignant moment and then sort of, it was just a bit much. I've seen documentaries about all sorts of things, and they have a style. Every documentary has a style, but it was almost, let's see how much we can sort of really push on your emotions. And of course, when people were commenting on it and were so quick to sort of not... your emotions are going to come in first before your rational side. I think we can all agree with that, even us skeptics. So you can't help it. But it was the backlash, the pull his music. He's just the worst thing ever. And I thought, okay, I can understand why people reacted, certainly with the sort of the graphic detail involved. But I thought, no, I want to sort of really look into this. And then I found videos that at that stage were very few, that refuted brilliantly a lot of the claims. And I say that because a lot of the information within the documentary, or rather the accusations and times and things like that, have been so quickly, and I do mean quickly, within weeks, refuted and called into question, that it makes me wonder, why did they not do any sort of fact checking before the documentary? That would have given it certainly more power to have been more factually correct. So essentially, it was a couple of hours of sort of anecdotes, and that frightened me. It was more saying something about how we can be sort of convinced of somebody's guilt by the sort of emotive nature of what they've been sort of accused of. And even people, I can't remember who specifically, but there were people in the skeptic community that sort of jumped on it. And I thought, no, hang on, let me, it wasn't my job necessarily to present evidence for the other side, but I just thought, isn't that what we do? Do we not sort of question things? Right. And I suppose, with history and stuff like that, there's this idea that, no smoke without fire and all that sort of stuff. But that worried me. It worried me that people were so quick to be convinced from this documentary. And of course, now that I mentioned the internet being the sort of the big player here, there's not a day goes by that a new video doesn't come up, of course, because I've watched some of them. My YouTube sort of algorithm shows me them all, of people who were huge fans. Of course, they're going to have a vested interest, digging and making these incredibly detailed videos refuting a lot of the claims. But also people who'd watched it initially thought, oh my God, and then have slowly began to question it, and they've actually come on the other side. So not like it's just super fans and things like that. It's quite impressive, actually. Who would have thought the internet would have been the harbinger of fact finding and truth seeking? So yeah, I hope I explained it and why I made the video.
Yeah, there's definitely not a black and white story in that story at all.
No.
That sounds like a Michael Jackson pun in like 2 different ways.
You should put it in there. Do you have more that you want to say about it? I have some 2 cents, but I will not forget it, so you can. Oh, sure. If Christy wants to ask anything,
I want to hear what Mac has to say.
Yeah, me too. Actually, yeah. Bring it on.
Right. So, I did. Okay. So first off, I did not bring Kelly on here to like just talk about Michael Jackson.
No.
And debate any part of this at all. Honestly, I don't really have any kind of debate for it. I want to make clear that I don't really know. I don't really know what all the evidence points to for Michael Jackson, because I always kind of took it at face value, to the point to where I figured some of the allegations were probably true. Not really looking into all of them, but some probably weren't, because that's kind of how it goes in Hollywood. And such. So, like, but I always thought it was interesting, looking at Michael Jackson, how people treated him and the situation, just overall. So things that I thought were over the top is just like pulling his music and just kind of condemning every little piece of art that he ever did. Because one thing I like to look at, no matter what the situation, is, okay, well, if he did do what he was said to have done, like, like mess with kids, then that doesn't mean he made awful music, right? You can still like his works and not like the person. Because I like a lot of his music, because he is like almost objectively, he's a wonderful musician, like no matter how he is as a person. And I like to be able to separate things like that. I think it's important too. And then another thing that I thought was really interesting is I remember the day that he died. I was down in the Cincinnati area. It was like a day before my uncle got married, and it was the same day that Farrah Fawcett died.
That's right. Yeah.
So I remember seeing it on the news at my grandma's house, and then I think even before I saw it on the news, like an hour before, I had gotten a text message. It was like a forward message, and it was a joke. It was if I can remember it, it was since Michael Jackson's dead, I think we should melt him down and mold him into Legos so kids can play with him for a change. And I'm just like, like, that's pretty funny. Got to hand it to you. But I also thought simultaneously, I guess not simultaneously, but once I saw it on the news, I thought of that instantly. I'm like, same day. I always have like the same day rule, or like day of the funeral rule.
Yeah.
It's just like, hey, like, okay, I get it. No matter how awful this person was, or at least to a certain point, like they have to be pretty darn awful, to like really just throw in the hate when the family is mourning, because no matter how bad a person is, and again, I don't know what the evidence points to. I haven't seen the documentary. I've never really done a deep dive on Michael Jackson, and I'd be cool with like doing that with you sometime, like going through the evidence back and forth. I think that'd be fun, because I would like to know more about it. But I think no matter what, that person was, raised as a child with a family, whether they were born to that family or not, and people loved him. right? So people are mourning when someone dies, and we should be. I think it's a humanist quality, honestly, to really just give them time to mourn, and then even when it was W.H. Bush, he was a war criminal. He had a lot of rats in his sack. But when he died, I thought, hey, all right, like, I know, like, there's a lot we can throw at this dude, and he deserves it. He fucking deserves it.
Right.
But day of the funeral, let's give it a rest. Next day, please, throw all the dirt on him that you can. He's being buried. Throw the rest of the dirt on him. Again, he deserves it. But like, give people a chance to mourn.
Not his family. Him.
Yeah.
Him. Yeah, like, stay focused, but also like let people mourn. Like, we even do that in war, right? I mean, at least to a point when it's like usually war has rules, right? People are human. We need to like look at that. People are connected to every person. If I said that right, I think I said that funny, but I hope I'm getting the point across. That's what I think about it. I'm just like, I mean, so like sometimes jokes are funny, sometimes facts are important. Usually facts are important. But also people need a chance to mourn, and I feel like we need to be respectful of the dead, because that's something like humans
of the mourning
need to know. Like, you know, your family's going to be respected, your life's going to be respected to a certain point. So like, be respectful, but also be honest.
Human dignity.
Absolutely. It's a telling thing, I suppose. I mean, I can't imagine people having picnics over Hitler's death, but it's one of those things where it makes us the bigger people, I suppose. Death shouldn't be a disqualifier in terms of, you know, judgment. But there's a you know, decent 24 hours. You know, what will it hurt people? But it's funny you should mention his death, really, because I mean, he was lucky in that he had a huge fan base. So there was so many people mourning, obviously, and then counter any sort of negative aspect. But I remember reading an article about sort of 2 or 3 days after he died in an English newspaper. And they said, you know, how long do we mourn before we start judging? And I thought, well, it's pretty arsehole sort of topic anyway, for anyone. But hang on a minute. So you're saying, you know, of course I was in mourning in a sense, but, you know, they're sort of saying there's a time frame, and anything beyond that point is foolish. And I just thought, how are you able to just sort of generalize like that? But perhaps I was still, you know, a bit emotional. So there was that. And then also the aspect, I mean, the British tabloids, as they're world famous for being just awful, but they were the ones that, I mean, they had sort of headlines, Jacko was dead, that sort of thing, but they were actually, if I remember right, pretty respectful, and they were quick on the sort of they were giving away commemorative magazines within the newspaper and things like that. I've got a whole bunch, you know, in storage, that these beautifully done sort of little booklets that came in with the Sun, and I think even the Times did one as well. So considering how much money they made off of negative press of the man, I mean, of course, it's all money, I suppose, but they actually did quite a good job, and it was very sort of informative and respectful, and you know, made people sort of look at his best parts, and then, you know, obviously after a mourning period, they would probably start in on him again. But it was actually quite nice. It was actually quite a respectful thing. Yeah, I know. I mean, who would have thought that of the British tabloids? But it's one of these things that, you know, we're going to obviously speak about it. But I think one of the points I wanted to make in my video was that I don't know for absolute certain. I'm going on these particular accusations and what doesn't seem right. And the scary part, the really scary part, and hopefully we'll go over that when we talk about it another time perhaps, is that a lot of the information that counters what they're saying, not just these allegations, but the ones in the mid-2000s and the ones in the early 90s, all this information is readily available. Perhaps not so back then, because obviously the internet wasn't the machine it is now, but it's there. So it's not hidden. You don't have to be a PI to go and find it. You just have to have the idea, that sort of thing, the skeptic side of you. And it's not something that people are really, well, they are now, but when the documentary first came out, it was just all taking at face value. And I think it was that aspect, the sort of, not questioning it, that really frightened me, because I thought, if I can make a documentary and say he did something to me, I've never even been on the same continent as the man, so, well, depending on where he was at the time, but I've never been to any of his concerts or anything like that. Now, nobody can necessarily disprove that. So it's that easy. I could say anything.
It's scary.
Yeah, it is. And I've had, I've heard of examples of people being falsely accused. And I mean, we've spoken briefly about this in terms of the religious aspect, haven't we, about paedophilia. So you know how I feel about it. And I would never give anybody a free pass in any sense of the word, no matter who they were. And so that's why I say I can't objectively know he never did those things. But based on the information, it's almost, especially this latest allegation, it's almost laughable. It really is. And I obviously use that word, but I don't use it lightly. But all it takes is an hour on Google to just look at some information. And I think that's what bothers me, because you're a general person, like you said, you don't really have a dislike for the man, but you don't have a vested interest. But there's those in the industry that know how documentaries are set up, and that know, I mean, for example, Oprah, she's obviously been the thing behind it. She's backtracking a little now, but she knows how these things can be played out. And so it just worries me that they're sort of like playing along with it a little bit and not sort of thinking for themselves, I suppose. So, why would an average Joe down the street question it? So, yeah, that's just the scary aspect to me.
Very, very. We lost a thing called the fairness doctrine here in the States. Mm-hmm. And when we lost the fairness doctrine, which if you don't know what that is, everybody should look it up. It was standard for journalism, for telling a story, that there had to be a look from the opposing view when you did news. It didn't have to be like now religious use it as teach the controversy. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about, just a regular story that news is presenting and say it's a scientific study. Well, here are the people that are trying to disprove that, and let's talk to both of them. And if it's a dispute that had to do with a family dispute, they wouldn't just, listen to the family that's saying what happened to them, the victims. They'd talk to everyone, and it would all be presented, and it wouldn't be a biased, and it was under the fairness doctrine. Underneath it's gone. And you can see that when that left was around the time that we got Citizens United as well, which meant money, free speech, and corporations are people, and you don't have to be fair. And documentaries started flying off the shelf. There were so many documentaries within the first 6 months of Obama becoming president that were just absurd, but they were put out as research, as this is what this investigator found, and then we have this, and we have this, and yeah, it's scary for me. For Michael Jackson, I just want to caveat real quick, PYT will always be my shit. Love PYT. I love it. But as a survivor of child sex abuse, I haven't even looked at that story. I haven't watched the documentary. That one's hard for me. So I just have to take your word for it that, you know, I haven't seen it. It's not on my list to see. I'm not saying I never would. I just
it's
gotta prepare for that one.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's just like, I think what's worse is certainly about this time in particular is that because I really don't believe them in terms of the things I know or have investigated. It's the fact that this is one of the worst things you can accuse somebody of as well.
It is.
Yeah, and of course, you know, if it did happen, then they deserve the perpetrator deserves everything they get. It's awful. Aside from murder and rape, obviously, of an older person, it haunts my dreams. It's awful. It's an awful thing.
I thought it was weird that it wasn't a thing until he was gone. That part was weird for me. But I mean, I'm agnostic on it. Like I said, I haven't watched this new documentary. I've watched people talking about it. I've heard people going off the deep end like you're talking about, you know, oh my God, he's the worst person ever. But I can't say either way for myself. It is scary. It is scary. Without anybody can make a documentary about anything saying it's true. I don't know if you remember, you're not here in the States, but about 5-6 years ago, the History Channel or the Science, no, one of those, Discovery, it might have been Discovery, a channel that people take seriously. That when they sit down to watch this channel, they are getting factual information. And they put this documentary out about mermaids. Do you remember this, Mac?
Oh, no. I don't want to talk about it.
Fucking insanity.
I don't want to talk about it.
It was so real.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody was talking about
a shitty video at the end. You're like, oh, no, I've been duped.
Yeah, they found specimens. There were scientists involved. It was this whole big thing. People really believed that we had found mermaids all over the country.
Yeah, and because like what I was watching it on, and like how it was like really made well.
Oh yes.
And like I really started to buy into it, and honestly, like once I saw that like that live video, I'm just like, oh, I've never felt like a bigger idiot. That
was at the very end.
Well, there seems to be this ongoing thing, I think, with the History Channel in particular. It might be another one, but there's getting less and less
History Channel.
History. Yeah, it's becoming
ancient aliens.
Yeah.
On the History Channel. They lost me.
Conspiracy theories are now part of history.
They're alternative history. We have
a channel for that. You know, it's just crazy.
Alternative science, alternative medicine, alternative news, alternative reality.
So I have two thoughts on this. Because one, I've been waiting to say for a little bit because I think it's very, very relative to, especially what you had watched this documentary. And the first part is, you probably haven't seen anything from Abby Martin, I would imagine. She's a journalist that Christy and I really, really adore. We want her to come on the show. Come on the show! We really want her on the show sometime. She's absolutely fantastic. But something that she said that really has stuck with me, and is something that I've thought for a long time, and I'm glad that someone smart said it. I'm just like, oh, cool, I feel vindicated. I feel like smarter because someone says something, I think. All news is like propaganda.
Yeah.
Right? Like pretty much everything you watch is propaganda. Yeah. So this documentary that you watched, like you said, they like over dramatized it. But that's just about everything that we see. Like every piece of news, everything we see really is most likely pushing a narrative. And even stuff that we see from Abby Martin.
Oh yeah.
sometimes it drives me nuts because she puts that dramatic music or that like low tone.
Well, she's right now she's with the network Telesur, which is partly funded by Latin America, including Venezuela.
She was out of that now.
No, the Empire Files is still with Telesur. It's just her show. She couldn't find another network that would allow her to do what she wants to do. They will. So, that's what she did. Well, Telesur, I don't know if you have ever watched, like an American soap opera, which is completely cheesy and dramatic, but it's nothing compared to Spanish daytime TV and novellas. That is some serious drama. Yeah. So, being that, and it's not an excuse, I don't need the dramatic music and stuff either, but it is from a Latin government. It's their version of PBS. We have public broadcasting system. Telesur is their version of that. And it is geared towards the Latin family. So there's a lot of dramatization as far as the sounds in the background. And it's almost a little dated because we're fortunate to be in, the U.S. where it starts here and moves. So, her points are on point. So that's what matters.
Yeah.
But it is still a propaganda if we're going by the definition of the original definition before it was bad or good. It just was, these are the facts, and this is what we want to tell them in this order because we want this to happen. That would be, propaganda. It doesn't have to be bad or good.
Yeah.
But most times it's not used for good.
Right. And I think, that's one reason why I really like Addie Martin so much. I guess it's a hero thing, but it's
she's a beast.
Because she says, all news is propaganda. And if she hadn't said that, I probably would respect her less, because like I said, you hear that drama and her pitch and the way that even the visuals are set up. Yep. She is trying to sell you this narrative, but also she gives you enough evidence to where just you can't dispute it. If you are, you're a dummy. She's slapping you in the face with evidence the whole fucking time. It's just the drama that she puts with it sometimes makes me roll my eyes, but then I'm I just can't dispute it.
I suppose it's the consumerist nature in us that we do like things packaged a certain way. I was, in sort of searching in terms of hero worship and stuff, and the idea behind why we worship celebrities more than we do people in academia is because they package it well. And it's not to say that we're not intelligent enough to understand academia. It's just we've got busy lives. We need it segmented, our information segmented and given to us in a certain way. Some people don't really care that much, and other people do, and they're the ones that obviously will look at different sources and things like that. And of course, for people like us, we can't help it. We need to know the truth, because I suppose I'm an emotional person. I'm not going to say I'm not, but I try not to let that sway me from looking at the truth. If the truth is harsh and hard to look at, I'd rather know it than sort of rely on a falsehood. That I can't say that's always been the way, but it certainly is now, because I'd consider myself a hypocrite if I didn't. But journalistic integrity is hard to come by, and it's usually stamped out in a lot of ways. It's funny you should mention a particular reporter, because there's a lady, a writer, a journalist. She's done other things called Aphrodite Jones, and she was one of the very few journalists, certainly around the 2005 allegations, that had questions and was really sort of saying, is everybody else watching this? Because you all have one opinion and I seem to have a differing one. And even after he was acquitted, she had written a book about all the sort of discrepancies and things that she noticed, and nobody wanted it. They said they didn't want anything pro Jackson. Those are her words. And she said this was crazy. This man had been acquitted, by. It's not to say that anybody, because I still think O.J. Simpson was guilty, and yet he was, acquitted and set a free man. But so it's not to say that the justice system is always perfect, but it was almost this sort of like dig deep. No, we can't possibly sort of go back on what we were saying, and really pedantic nature. You think as a journalist, wouldn't it be a great story to actually the truth shall set you free and all that sort of stuff? But it wasn't sellable. It literally wasn't sellable. She could not sell it. I think in the end she ended up getting some sort of publishing for it, but it was a struggle. She was a journalist of many years and with connections and all sorts, but they specifically said nothing pro Jackson. And it's just like, okay, so this is somebody who obviously has people split about their opinions of him, but what about Joe Bloggs down the street? He could have easily gone through this. Would you feel the same way? No, you'd probably want to vindicate him, or at least look into it more. It was almost, I don't want to say a witch hunt, but incredibly one-sided, certainly with the coverage of the trial. And you can look back at it now, and it was intense. It was before things even started, they were coming up with all these different theories and things, and it was just bizarre. How could you not get caught up in it? How could you not have a bias before you'd even heard a testimony? So
he didn't make it easy either. The way that the whole world didn't understand Michael Jackson.
No.
Nobody. I don't think he understood Michael Jackson, and because he was the other, different, something else. Not like us, and not like us. I mean, not like anybody. He was Michael Jackson.
But this is one of the. I don't want it to sound like an excuse, because I'm not a psychologist myself. Perhaps Shannon would have a better sort of handle on this. But people try to put their sort of psychological stamp on why he was a certain way and things like this. But he's very unique. He's obviously, there's not really anybody else that we can sort of go along in the same sort of thing, level of fame, how young he was when he started. And people do forget he was raised a Jehovah's Witness. So that adds it into the mix as well of messing with your mind. And he was a Jehovah's Witness right up until, I think, past Thriller. So he was actually going door to door. His mum was the force behind it, but him and his brothers were still going door to door, like they do. And he had to wear disguises, of course, because people would recognize him. But so you've got all these factors at play. I'm surprised he was as sane as he was.
They did a Christmas album when he was young.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Christmas.
He didn't celebrate his own birthdays either, or Christmas. He did for other people. He would decorate his house. But there's footage of him and Elizabeth Taylor spending a Christmas together. It's like a home video, and he even says, I don't sort of celebrate it, but I bought her some things because you have to, because it's Elizabeth Taylor. But he didn't. So even up until the age of, I think he was sort of in his mid-30s, then he still had this nature of being, JW. And of course, as we know, that can mess with your head. So all these factors at play. I'm surprised he didn't go mad a lot earlier. It's he's very unique in that aspect, and that doesn't give him any reason to act in a criminal manner. But it's certainly, people try to put him in a box, and I don't think it's really, really possible. And of course now he's not even around to sort of question and investigate. So it's a bit unfortunate.
Very unfortunate.
Yeah,
Very.
And like you said, it's hard to put yourself in Michael Jackson's shoes, because we don't really have. There's no one at his level to compare him to figure out his life. There's a lot that I can imagine. Like, he has a lot of reasons to be any kind of messed up. Like, you would have an excuse for it, but that doesn't mean he is. But I do want to point out for everyone that we can see notes from Natcha. And before Kelly jumped into the stream with us, he was asking us, does she know that he was a Jehovah's Witness? I'm like, I don't know. So I'm sure he was very excited about this portion of the talk, because that was really interesting. So once he brought it up, like, yeah, cool. You get to talk about that.
Well, A lot of people don't know it because, of course, like younger people now who, I mean, I was only sort of 1 or 2 when Thriller came out, so even I got it sort of later on. But at the beginning of the Thriller video, I don't know if you remember, but there's a disclaimer saying that despite the nature of the video, it's in no way an endorsement. I can't remember paraphrasing, but endorsement of the occult, and he felt pressured into putting that on because I'm so sorry, I forget the name of not the Kingdom Hall sort of thing, but the elders, thank you, of his church had something to say about it. Yeah. So he felt compelled, and he was of an immense power. So you can see how he still felt under the thumb in a sense. But after that, because they got, they were really on him, I think he thought, no, sod you. So I don't think he stayed a Jehovah's Witness for much longer after that. I think he felt that he'd been stifled so much by other authoritative figures, I think, in his life that he's like, no, I'm going to go out on my own and see what I can do. So when we consider, the people that we sort of come across who are either still JWs or are out of it, like Notcher, they've got all this sort of, I don't want to say baggage, but they've got all this emotional sort of history involved in that has informed so much good and bad, I should think, about themselves. Couple that with physical abuse as a child. Couple that with a workload and a work ethic that he's had to stick to since he was 5 years old. I mean, that's the 3 big things that, could turn somebody doolally, as we say in the UK. But it's, so I think people forget that. And because there is a generation now that have only grown up with the allegation side of it, they can appreciate his music and things, but they don't sort of see the whole sort of package. And I think people do forget. We cherry pick when we want something to inform our beliefs. We sort of cherry pick. So it's one of those things. I was
in private school in 3rd grade when Thriller came out. I was obsessed with Michael Jackson. I had a real red leather jacket with silver everywhere, the pockets, the little they're like thumbtacks. I mean, everything. The whole jacket. They even had the zippers here. I had the silver socks. I had the one glove. Now, I went to a private school where Temple Christian Academy. We all had to wear the same thing everywhere. But we could have our own socks. We could have our own jackets. So I was that like, oh my God, did you see her? I was that kid. And we went on a field trip. And after the field trip, my mom was with us. We went to we have Pizza Hut here, probably everywhere. We went to a Pizza Hut and, the whole class, and they had a jukebox. Well, I picked Thriller, not even thinking anything except for I have money. I want to hear my song. Obviously, I'm repping the jacket. I love this man. Not living in my own world. As soon as it came on, 2 of the little girls started hysterically screaming in my class, had to be removed from the restaurant while the song was on. A couple other were asked, it's okay if you want to go be with your friend. If this is too scary, you can go. I was just like, what is going on? My mom was like, okay, so you can't play that anymore. And that part of the song, a couple kids, that's at the end. A couple kids left then. What is this? And so for the rest of the year, I was not only that girl, but then the evil demon girl on top of it. Yeah.
It's a brilliant story.
So yeah, he was very powerful. I mean,
so much
we're looking at my mom like, oh, how dare you? Because she was young, gorgeous, blonde, really way too young to be my mom, So, yeah, the whole thing, we were like that family.
I would like to move beyond the Michael Jackson talk for a little bit. Because we've taken about 50 minutes on that part already.
Wow, sorry.
No. Hey, this was a wonderful talk. But there's a few other points that I want to get to, and I do want to end it kind of by pointing out something that I noticed during the talk. When we're looking at propaganda, when we're looking at news, when we're looking at any of our heroes and opposing news to our views for any situation, we really need to be aware of that. Probably one of the most common logical fallacies, appeal to emotion, right? And that can be, I think that should be just like at the forefront of our minds during this whole conversation. One of the next things that I really would like to touch base on is gods.
Yeah.
I feel like appeal to emotion and hero worship is absolutely related to gods. Because to so many people, Jesus Christ, that's their savior, that's their hero. God is their hero. So would either of you like to throw your thoughts in the ring?
I've been talking way too much. Let Christy go.
Gods and hero worship. Well, I'm sure there's lots of that.
Yeah.
I've only had one experience recently, as in 2 days ago, with, I guess I've been talking to a lot of people who are open-minded, even if they're still theists, or if they're polytheists, pagans, just, I don't want to call it a bubble because it's not an unhealthy thing. I am challenged and we have great conversations, but just haven't stepped out of the, I want to say, more academic group in a couple of months, just people that are obsessed with learning. And a couple days ago, I was on a political chat and had said something about the channel, this one, LEAH, and the person who was asking about it said, I can't find it. Or not asking about it, but then asking about it, said, hey, I want to find it too. I can't find it. So I typed out the whole thing, and that changed everything. And I haven't had that happen in a long time. And I mean everything. Like, how dare you try to come into a chat and sow separation? And we're supposed to be the resistance. Like, the left, the resistance, and I'm trying to break it up. I was just so blown. And I thought, what does that have to do with anything? And I had to step back and think, wow, they're not coming from anywhere near where I've been able to get to. And I have to go back to before I knew how to handle these conversations and think about, and it was hard. What would I think to someone whose God is so big in their mind that anything that even makes them think that I might be suggesting something means that I am a horrible person? How do I talk about that? And that's some hero worship that I guess I need to not forget how to deal with, because it really took me off.
Yeah.
I just had to sit back and think, I might need to pack a bowl to stay in this chat room. I don't know if I'll be able to handle this person. And it was tough. And these are people who demand evidence when it comes to policy and politics. And they need to know, and they need to see data, and they want to see the polls. And they even like peer review. So it was just kind of like, I don't know about this worship thing, after I did calm it down and was able to keep talking to this person, which was great. I did have to say that I would be the first one marching for your right to believe in whatever God you want. And they had said something about the Constitution and how I was kind of going against it. And so I said our Constitution, and then looked it up, made sure I cited the exact spot, that it is freedom of and from. It's of whatever religion you want, or from any religion. And that if they really did support the Constitution, they would support my right
Mm-hmm.
to be equal with you
Mm-hmm.
and not have a God.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't want to talk anymore, but they saw it differently, but you could just kind of tell they were like, ugh. And that caught me off guard. I haven't had that happen in a while. I guess I need to get out there. So that's some hero worship right there. God worship.
But it's funny because you can meet some very nice people, some quite rational people who are rational and nice in every other sense but that.
Yes.
And that is when it's surprising. Because, of course, I suppose on Twitter and stuff like that, we're used to getting a lot of the apologists who are pretty full on and have been around so long that they've had all their queries answered. So now it's almost like they're just doing it for fun. So it can be quite rare to come across somebody who's a genuine believer,
Right.
but that you can have a decent conversation with, because you don't feel like you're banging your head up against the wall. But in sort of looking at the different levels of, sort of fundamentalism and things like that, there's not that much difference between somebody who is, pretty devout in their faith, and then there's only a hop, skip, and a jump to fanaticism, and beyond. And I don't just mean in terms of people wanting to blow themselves up or things like that, but just psychologically, it's not that much of a difference. And then, I mean, things like martyrdom and stuff. There's probably people you could stop on the street right now, perhaps not so much in the UK, but in America, and they would say, if you could die for Christ, would you? And the likelihood is you probably get people saying yes. It's like, what? So, but wouldn't say that of anybody else. So it's a prime example when in the weeks that we've been trying to organise this, some funny things have happened, and that I can't remember who it was. I think it was a pastoral or somebody of note expressed that Trump was the most Christ-like.
Yes.
I mean, they practically handed that to us. It was going to be brought up, but I just thought, not only is it obviously demonstrably incorrect as to what we know about Jesus and what has been written and things like that, whether it's factual or not,
Right.
that they hold obviously Jesus to a standard, and then want to they really like Trump, and they have to marry the two for some reason, and it's that's the level of fandom I think we have to worry about. I mean, in terms of deities and in terms of worship, you do have a personal, people who worship have a personal stake in it, so you can see, and a very deep, and especially if it's part of indoctrination, so from childhood it's part of you. It would literally be like removing an arm for a lot of people, whereas with Trump, he's a very mortal man. Say all these negative things about him, and demonstrably as well. You say, well, I don't think Jesus slept with a porn star while his wife was living. As far as I know there's a Mary Magdalene thing. I don't know.
Jesus was an immigrant, wasn't he? He was an immigrant.
Yeah.
That's what...
Exactly.
Also,
Exactly.
I sleep with some people when I saw them on Family Guy, which is all factual.
You'd be surprised.
Funny tidbit. So the
Titty
right-wing evangelicals in this country, they call Trump the Great White Hope, and that he is sent from. I know. I'm saying
the Great White Hole.
Yeah, exactly. That he is sent from Yahweh himself. That he is the most Christ-like president we have ever had, and probably will ever have, and definitely have had in their lifetime. Also, they just had these coins minted. On one side is Trump. On the other side is this Prince of Persia, this King of Persia, that they're saying their stories are very similar. I don't know exactly which. I know it's a king or a prince from Persia as a fact. I know that as a fact. And I know that Persia is also Iran in real life. So I don't think they've even thought about that. I'm looking at it and I'm like, wait, Persia's like, oh, these fuckers are dumb. Don't they hate Iran? Like they just put the king of Iran and saying Trump's the same. And I mean, I'm sure that that's way above their heads, but I thought it was funny. I was home alone when I found out. I laughed for like 30 minutes.
That's too funny.
So stupid.
Working with levels like that, I mean, it must be an upward struggle for you guys. We're a little bit more. Don't get me wrong. We're subject to bias and subject to craziness in this country, but we're not so led by our sort of pastoral influences over here. Thank goodness. You know, when the Archbishop of Canterbury does something, he gets stressed up and it's on the news. But that's about it. Nobody's sort of like, oh, we really have to listen to what he has to say. He's just a figurehead, a bit like the Queen, I suppose. But my goodness, that is some good stuff. Wow.
And as far as gods, I feel like one of the biggest uphill issues that I see rational people, it doesn't matter if they're religious or not, people who use logic and can separate Islam from a Muslim, Judaism from Jewish people, Christianity from people that understand if I say I detest Islam, I am not saying that about a Muslim anywhere. Talking about an ideology, same thing. The people that understand that is such a small minority in this world. And I see it more and more every day. I've been told just by a neighbor about a right-wing issue, but that's their beliefs. No, people have to be separated from them. Like the chat that I was in, I was told that I'm sowing discord for having an opinion about an ideology, not about people. They just couldn't. So when it comes to, I think, religion's not going anywhere. And if we can't get more people so that it's not a minority, being able to separate an ideology from the followers, we're never going to get rid of gods. Gods aren't going anywhere if we can't, like you said, it's like losing a piece of themselves. To criticize someone's, a verse in a Bible is to criticize them personally, and that's so sad to me.
Yeah, it is. And some points that I want to get to for this is, well, one, I like one thing that Kyle Kulinski says is, and we'll get back to politics, but I do want to say this while I'm thinking about it, is that there's so many right-wing Christians who are like, you know, they're super gay for God, right? But
that should be on a t-shirt. I'm super gay.
There's a big thing about the bridegroom and all this stuff, but whatever. But he says that their real religion is republicanism.
Yeah.
And I think that's very true for a lot of people on at least the American right.
Right.
But as far as gods go, something that I really wanted to make sure I threw out there tonight is that when you're looking at the Bible or you're looking at God and like he's your hero and whatnot, and like whatever he says goes is kind of how a lot of Christians and a lot of apologists look at things. I think that's how Calvinists look at it. Basically, God makes moral law. So like if he says X is wrong, then X is wrong. If he does X, it's not wrong. You did it.
Right. It's not wrong because God did it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's like there's no evidence really to back it up, right? I think it's mostly appeal to emotion. It's mostly not logical.
No, it's personal experience.
Right. So when you look at slavery in the Bible, when you look at any like women's rights in the Bible, when you look at the genocide in the Bible.
Wait, there's women's rights in the Bible?
The lack thereof.
Good save.
Right. And if you look at like what calls for the death penalty in the Bible, right? You know, like when they're stoning and why, and adultery and such and whatever. If you can't call those things out, you have a problem. right? It's just blind hero worship.
Yes.
And also it's like, excuse me, it's blind enemy hating as well, because like, hey, there's Satan. I say he's bad. He is bad. Those people over there, we need to kill them because they're bad. They are just bad. There's no critical thinking there. And we'll try to keep this under an hour and a half, because Notch is asking, and I think we should try to for that. But also, I know you have a daughter who will probably.
Luckily, she sleeps like a zombie. I'll have to drag her out of bed. She does have so it's sort of 7:15 now, so she has preschool at 8:45, but I'm still trying to wake her up at 8:10 most mornings, so it's around the corner. We're okay. She'll wander in and be like, what are you doing?
Right? What are you doing?
So basically, the equivocation, I guess, that I like to make is I like to look at comic books and religion, any kind of religion, because I think that if you want to look at hero worship and religion, a really good comparison is just comic books, because one, I don't think either of them are real, right? Two, that was something that I was warned about when I was younger, when I was a teenager, because I was like, and like, make fun of me if you will, but you're all fuckers if you disagree. Smallville was awesome, at least back in the day. As corny as
Never seen it. I can't tell you if it's good or bad.
It's wonderful. It's also like corny as fuck. It's basically like a teen soap opera, but with Superman. But I absolutely loved it. And then I got into like more superheroes, because I had watched like the cartoons in the 90s with like the X-Men and Spider-Man, Batman. So like, I've always loved superheroes, right? And that surprises a lot of Christians when they're talking to atheists, because a lot of us are nerds, right? So anyways, my point is, I was warned about that. It's just like, my mom was worried that maybe I wouldn't be able to tell the difference or something like that. like it's some kind of hero.
How obviously ironic.
Yeah. How ironic.
What? It's not real, Mom.
Right, but I think it's funny.
It's not real. It's just written down, and there's stories.
But I think it's so ironic now, because I put them on about the same level. Now, we're like, oh no, she was right. But
the Song of Solomon is true, though. Wow, chicka wow wow.
1 second, I'm just running a bit low on battery, so.
Oh yeah, plug in. I'll just go here. But I think it's a really good comparison to make, because if you can't call out the bad shit that your favorite comic book hero does, right? Then there's obviously like some cognitive dissonance. You're obviously cherry picking, right? Like, I loved Smallville, but like, it was corny as fuck. And it was like, every episode was basically like a repeat of the last. Like the same plot happened, but like with different characters and tweaks here and there. So like, it was a corny show. But I can point that out, right? I wouldn't mind people looking at the Bible or the Quran or whatever and saying, hey, this there are parts of this book that I find just wonderful and inspiring, and I would like to base my life around it. But I also understand that like there's some bad shit in there, and I don't condone any of that. That would be fine, right? When people say that, oh, we don't go by the Old Testament anymore because Jesus overturned that or whatever, I'm like, well, then not really. But like, I'm glad you don't.
Except for the gay part. The gay part, we do go back to the Old Testament, and we keep that one.
Right.
And
but
that's the one we're gonna keep.
Yeah, none of this would be a problem. If somebody, my next door neighbor, who they go to church every Sunday, but they don't preach or anything like that. But they, if they were to come to me and say, we worship horses, I'd raise my eyebrow, sure, but it doesn't really matter to me what somebody believes. Obviously, there's a nature of sort of cognitive impairment and things, or cognitive, perhaps not developing critical thinking if it's going from childhood and beyond. But it's one of those things where if it was a personal thing, wonderful, it's your life. But when we have these ancient stories, and they are stories, we can't absolutely confirm them. I mean, there's even parts of it that we know have been made up, but they're still used as the Exodus and things like that, and the ultimate tale of insurrection and things like that we know didn't happen archaeologically and otherwise.
Right.
But that can be inspiring stories. But people are trying to base policy and are using it in terms of, for some good, but come on now, mostly bad, and for anybody who isn't like them, it is wrong. So personal faith, I don't have a problem with, although you could argue it's probably not good for you in that sort of sense, because there's probably a lot of personal judgment that comes from that, and that probably feeds into mental health issues and things. But it's the politics and religion. I mean, obviously separation of church and state and stuff, but that seems to be shrinking. In America, it seems to, it wouldn't surprise me if we were to talk in 10 years from now and it's, a slippery slope, unless something happens. I think it's a real slippery slope.
There are Trump supporters right now that are on camera, audio and visual, saying, I've never believed in having a dictator in America, but now would be the time and Trump should be the one. Because
I saw that.
Yeah. It's insanity. And then these same religious right politicians they're using this phrase, religious liberty. But to them, religious liberty means having the liberty to push their ideologies on others. Because it's in their religion to do that. Not thinking that you're taking away that person's liberty. To them, you're taking their religious liberty, and it's working. We have a God we trust on every license plate in the state of Florida, unless you want to pay more to have a different one. That's standard. God we trust in Florida on every license, in every courthouse, in every school, on our money. It's
big business.
Yeah.
And to what Kelly said, and I can't remember word for word, but I remember what it made me think, is that I think the biggest issue for me is the faith, is the belief that it's true, right? Because I feel like there's enough evidence to where you should at least be skeptical of your religion. You should at least be skeptical, right? And that's the issue. It's just that we have this blind faith, and it's rewarded,
right? And if you're listening, anybody, if you're listening and you happen to be I don't care what religion it is, if it is the truth and it's written by your God, who is the most perfect being in the world, how could it not stand up to questioning? How could it not question it? If it's perfect, you will find out that it's perfect.
It's a matter of faith.
It's a matter of faith.
That's what they come in. Oh yes, well I am.
Yes. So that's the thing for me, is just like I can it's the word worship. It's like, how do you define it, right? Because to an apologist, if I say this, it'd be like an aha, I gotcha. But to someone like who's a little bit brighter, Either of you, if I say I worship Captain America, you know what I mean, right? Like I worship his qualities. Like he's super cool. Like I love Captain America, Superman, and the Flash because they're the true blue like superheroes who are just the good guys. And I love that. I love the qualities that they have.
Yeah.
They're so boring, and I love them. But I know they don't exist, right? I don't believe in them to like the extent that someone believes in a God, right? And I wish that religious people could see that. Like, sure, but like believe in all the good stuff of your religion, but be able to point out the bad. Like be able to be like, maybe some of this isn't true, or maybe some of this is just bad. Because that's something that I could see when I was a teenager. I'm like, you know what? I think God and I have a few different ideas of what's bad. And I think he'd respect that. And that's building a God in your head, right? That fits you. And I think just about everyone does that.
I did that. Absolutely. Yeah. I did that. I even told people that God and I have a great relationship. And I understand God. God understands me. And if something's wrong, something's wrong. To me, the people who wrote stories that are atrocious were wrong. That doesn't mean God was wrong. You know, and I was just making excuses and apologizing for stuff I totally had never read, let alone understood. Yeah.
We do that, you know. It's not an odd thing. I mean, it is an odd thing in sense of like the incorporeal nature of God. But when something's that intrinsic to you, it would almost be you wanting to defend a family member. You feel that sort of close to the source of it all. So okay, I get that. You know, the sort of jumping through.
Call him the father.
Yeah, the mental gymnastics.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's so I can understand this, and certainly, again, I mean, I think sometimes we forget, or I forget, how strong indoctrination then affects many years of continuing worship, and how much harder it would be to sort of separate from that. But it's funny you should mention about sort of superheroes and stuff, because I sort of feel the same way with Greek gods. I find their stories fascinating because they have both the superheroes and the Greek gods have quite alarmingly humanistic qualities. They don't profess, even Superman doesn't profess to be perfect. And I'm not a huge comic book buff, but I think there's stories in which he turned bad for a little while, whether I read Kryptonite or something like that. But they deal with the circumstances of what they've done. You know, it's not brushed under the carpet. Oh no, we have to forgive Superman because, you know, he's Superman. So it's far more a thing to look up to, I think. Than this sort of God and the Christ-like figure, because it's almost like, you know, they can't do any wrong, and we can't get our minds around that because we are, you know, we have human failings. We can live excellent lives and still make mistakes, but you know, to have this sort of, I think the mistake was to have this paragon of absolute good, because that's where the contradictions come in, because we don't know how to be that good, and because we fall short of that, people take advantage and will say, well, you know, then you're a sinner, blah, blah, blah. And it's just this constant sort of wanting to aim for something that is essentially impossible. And like you said, what's even more frustrating is that he's not. He's, you know, his written word, his inerrant word is so contradictory, it's frightening. And people who seem supposedly know it best can't see that, and that's one of the more frustrating parts. If somebody came to, you know,
see that.
Yeah, I love God. I know what He's done isn't perfect. Blah blah blah. Then I'd say, okay, then at least you see it, and then you then
I can respect that, right? I can respect that. Yeah. When I hear a theist say, I don't understand that part of the Bible, I don't agree with it. I don't know if it was human error, but I still believe. I can respect that because it's way better than saying, well, God did it, so can't be wrong. Whether it's dashing the babies on the rocks or whatever the gross, disgusting thing is,
There was a reason.
God did it, so it's not wrong. Can't get down with that.
Depending on how well versed they are in scripture, I often want to sort of do this. Yeah, I often want to do this experiment, but I'm still studying the Bible myself to be able to really, give it some. But I'd love to be able to relay a story to somebody, just as in a discussion, not to catch them out or to insult them in any way, but just relay them a story and say, this is in another holy book. And it actually be a Christian biblical story, and for them to say, "Oh my God, that's awful," and then for me to say, "Well, actually, it's from Leviticus."
That's an amazing.
We can do a whole series on it, couldn't we? But it's amazing how quickly it's the ultimate la 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 sort of thing. It is bizarre. It's definitely psychological. I don't think people want to be hoodwinked, and I don't think people want to sound foolish, but it is frightening.
You could tell the story and then say, was it A, the Bhagavad Gita, B, the Quran, or C, the Bible? Something like that. And that way you're not hoodwinking them.
Exactly.
And I think it will give people and definitely have things from all of those books.
Yeah.
All of them.
Examples.
Actually, that would be amazing to go out in a busy area on a Saturday or Sunday and just stop people and say, I have questions, theology questions, mythology questions. That would be really, really good. My brain's moving.
That would be fun. That might be fun to do on LEAH every now and then too, is pick a religious book, pick a fun story and be like, hey, where does this come from?
Yeah. I love it.
Awesome. Yeah, brilliant idea. I thought somebody would have done that, but I suppose it can have an aspect of wanting to sort of tease people about it. Like, obviously you don't know your book well enough, but it's just highlighting. It's highlighting the fact that you put so much stock in it. I think, Matt, we discussed it. I think in our first Google Hangout. I think about how few Americans in particular have actually read the Bible completely. So. Again, I don't want to make people feel stupid, but if you're going to use a book in particular to inform your beliefs, your political ideas and things like that, then at least know it. I'm reading a wonderful book at the moment that Rachel Oates actually recommended in one of her sort of hangout things, and it's Jesus Interrupted. I can't remember the author. Perhaps I'll link it, but and it's really interesting because it's written by somebody who I think was a former minister, so of course they have all the inside knowledge, and he said the best way to do it is read the Bible horizontally. So when you have, I don't mean but you read a story, a passage. And he goes on about the Gospels in particular, because of course they're obviously all around Jesus and things. So, but he says you'll see a story about the birth of Jesus, I think in Luke. Still learning, like I said, and then corroborate that or look at another example in one of the other Gospels. I think it's Mark.
Yes.
Yeah, and they don't weigh up. They're literally saying two different things. Now he'll explain, obviously the authors are different, exactly, and how it was written many years later, but that's pretty important. And one does it because something, and the other one he'll say, well, it's likely because it had to sit in with this prophecy that this other person made. So I'm surprised it has any coherency, given how much a stretch of time it was written over and by how many people, because you can say that books inspire people, but there's a film coming out soon about Tolkien and how the idea for Lord of the Rings came about. Now, I don't know how factually correct the theatrical film is going to be, but there's this sort of nature of there being a fellowship of these young guys. Of course, Tolkien served in the war, and and how he was inspired by the sort of horrors of war and things like that. So, and of course, his book is wonderful and people love it. People don't base their lives around it so much, but you can see how sort of things like that can get written and can have this impact. But when that's the difference. Nobody's using Lord of the Rings to say, well, Legolas can die of grief, so we better outlaw grief. Seems like an odd thing to say. Exactly. Yeah. So that's the difference. It's the amount of stock you put into it. But when that book itself is errant, it does have issues, and issues that a layperson in terms of biblical study like me can see. You think, what? Why do people? It was perfect.
I went regularly, and never, whether I was in grown-up church, the sanctuary, no matter young, even older, 10, 11, 12, 13, I never, not one time, heard the gospel story of the resurrection, where every grave comes back to life. The whole city is just amuck with zombies. Like, they don't tell that in church ever. Why would they? Because people would be like, wait a minute. So not only did God resurrect his son, which is him that he killed to sacrifice for something no, but everybody woke up like zombies all over the city.
Because there's no other contemporary accounts to say that occurred. If there were, then it might be
occur. That's not something that's possible.
Can you imagine the headlines? Oh my god. Oh god. Ridiculous. Exactly. It's things like that. And when again, take inspiration from things, but don't say it's inerrant, because it so obviously is. And it's not to take anything away from wanting to live a pious life, to say that there is, if anything, it's more realistic. It's saying, you know what, God can be kind of a dick sometimes, but he's God. I mean, you shouldn't let him get away with stuff, but just take it light and breezy. Don't be so full on about it.
Be good for the sake of being good, helping people because they need help. Those are things that I don't need a moral authority to tell me are good things.
Humanistic.
I didn't need a moral authority when I believed to know that those were good things. And now knowing that there is no reason for me to believe such things, it's even more important, because if not now, when? If not who? It's us. We're here, and humans, our fellow brothers and sisters, are suffering, or they're hungry, or they're cold, and it's our job, I feel, to help. No, you shouldn't do without or suffer in order to help someone. I'm not saying that. But there are plenty of people that little things, that there is nobody going to save us. There are no superheroes coming. There are no, Yahweh, Superman hybrid coming. There's no zombie gods coming. Nothing's coming. It's us. It's us.
Right. And I think that's another reason why I think it's important. And this is a personal opinion, but I'm going to push it as if it's truth. I think it's more healthy to have heroes that just aren't real, because I think it's important for every person to have a principle base. If you have a principle base and you continue to learn things, I think that's the key. You should continue to learn. So you can have your opinions and your principles change if need be, right? But I think it's important to have heroes that aren't real, have like favorite superheroes or something like that. Because if you have a principle base, then you can judge people who are real. You can judge you can judge other things, right? You can judge religion. You can judge politicians, right? By this principle base, you can judge yourself by a superhero model or just a principle base. Am I living up to these own standards that I hold dear? And you can set yourself goals, right? And I think that's even for atheists, because atheists don't really have a world view, right? Like most don't.
They're individual.
Set your own principle base, or give yourself your own goal, right? Whether it's a superhero or something else. I use superheroes.
I just put Noam Chomsky in a cape.
Noam Chomsky, yeah. But also, again, I would argue, but he's real. If he does something,
yeah,
you want to also be able to knock him down. But I understand why you pick him. It's because when you already have a principle base and then you find someone who seemingly fits that principle base, well, that's delightful. That's amazing. But also, it's very important. And I wanted to get to political idols next, so I am ushering us to the next topic.
Okay.
It's like Bernie Sanders. It's just like, all right, hey, yeah, this guy's selling a lot of stuff that I would have liked to have been selling. Yeah, this is awesome. But there's certain things he hasn't called out recently, like the coup in Venezuela. He hasn't pushed enough on the Palestinian rights in Israel. There's a lot of things that he hasn't done, and I think it's important to point out the things that could be better or you don't like about political idols. And I think it's extra important because we have Trump, right?
And they're supposed to work for us. We're supposed to be the ones that hire them. Yeah.
So you should never sell out your values and say, I've never thought I think America should be in control of a dictator until Trump. And it should be Trump. You are just selling out your values, and your values should be more important than your idols. You shouldn't think, hey, we just need to beat the Republican Party so bad that, hey, I know Hillary's awful, but Trump's worse. I think that's absolute bullshit. And that's why I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. I don't care that she's a woman, although I would love a woman to be in office, but if she's a shitty woman,
right.
Sorry, you did that to yourself, Hillary. Right? And I won't agree with any Hillary voters or whatever, or just democraticism, right?
Corporatism.
Capitalism.
I settle for somebody who has actually, served in office in any sort of way. The fact that Trump's, he's never been a civil servant. That's how.
And that's used as a good thing, a quality. But he's not a politician, right? But the job he's applying for is a politician job.
Yeah. There can be that aspect of having an outsider's point of view, but it's just the structure of it. I remember saying to my husband, I thought, this is gonna, the whole world's gonna crumble. When he got in, it may have been a bit dramatic, but he said, no, you think about it. Whenever we watch things like House of Cards and things like that, you realize just how much is involved in just running a day-to-day sort of government. And you think, I can't imagine this idiot being able to open a can of beans by himself. How is this going to function? And it's because there are hundreds and thousands of people whose job it is to keep things as steady as possible and to keep it all going. He is not the harbinger of government. He's just this sort of figurehead. And I think half the time there's probably more damage control behind the scenes than they like to think there is, talking him down and saying, well, Mr. President, that's not a policy that exists. Well, I don't know. No, we need to do it this way. And then, I think there's, and thank goodness for these people, because I'm sure we'd be in much worse shape. But it's funny to say about the dictatorship side of things, because anybody who says that likely hasn't lived under a dictatorship. I'm just guessing, but I think they'd have different words to say if they had. But also, sort of political ideologies under dictatorships didn't do too well in the 20th century. A lot of people suffered. So it sounds like, oh yes, but it would make everybody cohesive. It really wouldn't. And
the woman who said that only said that because she's looking out and seeing that nobody's happy. This was back when, Kids were just making the news going into cages. We already had Muslim bans and airport protests, and she's looking at it thinking, this guy believes the things I believe. He is anti-abortion. He's anti-immigrant. He's, all of the bigoted things that I am. And if we could just have me as a dictator and everyone would have to live how I want them to live, I'm okay with that. And that's the problem. That's the problem. You have there's other people besides you. You're not the only one. And to think that I only want a country where people think and believe and live how I do, and if you don't, then you don't get the benefits that everybody's taxes pay for, because that's not how I want it. That's the problem.
Yeah, and there's a divisive aspect to it, and certainly we feed it ourselves. I know we're given a lot of information, but we do feed it ourselves. I mean, you can spend half an hour on Twitter and see how divisive people are, because whatever your beliefs are, the aggressor side of things takes control very, very quickly. And that's one of the reasons I think I made my video on abortion, was because that's all I was seeing, is one side against the other, both convinced they're right. And it's like, it's not about being right. It's you just sort of put yourself outside from it. You might be able to, you could say this about somebody else, but what if it was a family member that needed an abortion? Would you still, if not, then your opinion counts for nothing. So don't immediately demonize people on the other side. Now, obviously, with Republicans, that can be quite hard, because some of them in the public eye can be very repugnant. So I do understand it, and there is this nature of, well, there's so many that are just awful, they must all be like that. And
Republicans can't have women having control over their sexual reproduction. They cannot. Exactly. And the only time that they are okay with abortion is when their mistresses get pregnant and their wife can't find out.
Funny how that there's almost a little caveat there, isn't there?
But it's just what we see over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. And yet people, sort of on the, I try to think of people on the ground level of, of all this, voters and just your average people. I've got a friend who lives in town, and she's actually from Mississippi originally, so she's got the most gorgeous accent. And I said to her, when we first met, we met up via an app, like a mummy meet app sort of thing, and we've been friends ever since. And I said to her at the end of our little sort of coffee morning, I said, "Are you a Trump fan?" Because to me, that it wasn't a deal breaker. I was just curious, because I don't know many Americans. And she said, and she sort of rolled her eyes and she said, "Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed." That's my worst Southern accent. Sorry about that. But
pretty good, actually.
Thank you. But she honestly, it's her accent is so beautiful. And she said, "My dad's a Republican, and he's so embarrassed too." And I'm like, "No, you don't have to say that just because I obviously don't like the guy." But she said, no, and he's been a Republican for years. He thinks he's a jackass. And I thought, well, there you go. So there's somebody there who lives in the South. Again, I don't want to sort of put people in a box, but we hear this meme of people in these sort of states absolutely being red, and it's like, well, actually, no, he realizes what an idiot he is. He's got some really dangerous ideas, and he's willing to go from many, many years of being a Republican. And she said, I think he's going to vote Democrat next time. So
a lot of people are. And there's a comedian, I don't know if you've heard of him in the UK, but definitely check him out. You will die laughing. He's known as the liberal redneck. Trey Crowder is his name. He does the well-read, R-E-D, R-E-A-D, like well-read, R-E-D comedy tour. And he's hilarious. He's very political in his satire and his comedy. And he's got this real strong country accent. And he's just so funny. Actually, I'll send you a few things. He's hilarious. You will want to find out more about him. He's very smart, educated as far as in life and with books and knowledge, and it's nice. That's why he made such a name for himself, because he's like, listen, we're down here. we don't agree either. We are not on the side of putting children in cages and having a ban against an entire religious sector, and like we're not down with that. So they're out there, and I do think that there are a lot of Americans who voted for Obama at least once, if not twice, and voted for Trump because they just wanted to break shit. If they couldn't, it's either do the same thing that we know the same shit will happen, or we don't know what will happen. And even though the people like me who are very policy driven and understand the policies behind it knew that one was worse than the other, I completely empathize and understand why they chose to do the way they. But I also know that those same people, if presented with a left populist like Bernie Sanders that says, tell me about you and your problems here and let's try to work it out policy-wise, they'll vote for him in a heartbeat over someone who just tells them things. They want someone to sit down and say, I hear you, here's my ideas, let's try them. If they don't work, let's try something else.
Yeah.
So they're in the South. People are ready to try something. Bernie is going to win. I don't even believe in that, but like I have to believe that every day. Bernie, Tulsi, Elizabeth Warren, Nina Turner, those 4 people need to be in charge of shit.
Yeah.
And given their chance, they could do some amazing things. There's people who are, products of their time where when Trump got in, I thought, of course, there was a whole thing about the electoral college and things like that, and the nature by how he won. But I thought, there's enough people that feel disgruntled, that want to change. Don't discount them because they put somebody like him in charge. It may very well have been a different Republican. I can't say whether it was just his popularity or his policies and things. But don't discount them because you disagree with them. Find out why they. Right. And of course, invariably, a lot of the time, people have come away. Some people have dug their heels in, but other people have said, actually, he not only is he not done a lot of things he would say, but now I realise just how bonkers a lot of them were. So sometimes you just need an experience of something to realise, actually, that was actually pretty shit. We need somebody else. People like Winston Churchill, saying about political ideology or political idols, sorry. And he did amazing things. Was an incredible leader. He was also a bit racist, a bit
and a war criminal. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So, there are good things and there are bad things about it. But he was a product of his time. And after they sort of didn't vote for him again because that time was done. The time sounds awful because you think, oh, he's owed it, but he's not. He realised, there's wartime presidents and then there's peacetime presidents or prime ministers. So, you can sort of see aspects. And I was reading the other day about Gandhi, and he had some really misogynist things.
Yeah, and racist. And
so,
really
bigoted. It's almost a reverse Trump. You can't sort of say any of the good things without the bad. And with Gandhi, he did some amazing things and definitely changed the world, but was an imperfect man. Got to stop putting this level of perfection onto people.
That's a wonderful example.
Yeah. Oh God, I just shit on Gandhi.
Someone had to do it. I'm glad
it was me.
I'm glad it was you, and I'm glad it was here. That guy doesn't get enough slack.
I'm not going to come back to haunt me.
Hey, it's demonstrable, though.
Exactly. Yeah. Let me get some quotes up. Here we go.
And I think something I wanted to point out was that again with like the president and stuff is if we had gotten Hillary, we would still have the worst president of our lives right now, I think. Like we can't look at anyone, like even Gandhi, and think they're just perfect, right? We can't look at the better option and just think they're perfect. We need to continue to call out flaws and whoever we like or don't like. To get something better. Like if we get Bernie in office, that's wonderful. I want to start pointing out his flaws and also, like, give him credit when credit's due, because like the man deserves some credit, like now. But I think someone who's got him beat right now on some left-wing policies is Tulsi Gabbard. Like, she's kind of like my secret number one. I'm telling secrets here, but she'd be someone better to take over for him. Because she's very populist. She like changes her views and like listens to the people, and that's what a politician is supposed to do. She's supposed to listen to people. Not that Bernie doesn't do that, but she also really stirs up the pot and like rocks the boat of the establishment.
She wants to audit the CIA and the Pentagon.
Yeah, she would. She wants to.
She says there's no reason if governments of the world they exist because of the people of the nation. Governments should be built for the people, by the people, to represent the people, to help the people when they need it, and to support them and to protect them. That's why governments are built. They're not built so that they could subjugate the people. They're not built so that they can benefit from the people or make money from the people. Those are unacceptable things, and I think people are starting to wake up to go, wait. No. We hire somebody for a job, and you're not doing the job, so we replace you. And enriching yourself in a position of a civil servant. That's what you are. You are supposed to be worried about the people you represent. That is your job. And it should not be a job, in my opinion, that you can become a millionaire from. Now, I don't care that Bernie wrote a book. That has nothing to do with him making money off the people. He wrote a book that was a bestseller, not just here in the States. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who go into Congress and they only sign or support bills that directly benefit their family or their father-in-law or the oil company that they're going to become a lobbyist for. I'm not down with any of that. I don't agree with any of it.
That's not what politics is for.
People are starting to wake up to that.
You must forgive me. I know a little bit about American politics, but how long has the sort of lobbying aspect been going on in terms of funding for political parties or individuals? Because to me, that just seems like a giant.
The 70s is when it really took off. Is that right, Christy?
Late 70s when we had, union lobbyists. None of them were, they weren't vile yet.
Just seems like a big conflict of interest, doesn't it? If somebody gains power, and then all of a sudden they have to say,
to represent these 500,000 people, because these 500,000 people really want this. I need to talk to you for an hour about it. That was it. We had Citizens United come in and become a law of the land, that corporations are people and that money is free speech. And when that happened, it's been, and it sounds hyperbolic, but God damn it, it's so true. It was a slow coup, a corporate coup. They are beholden. Our Congress is beholden to corporations. Our courts, not all of them, but Trump has put more federal judges in than any other president in the time he's been in president. That's so scary, and nobody's paying attention. They're paying attention to his tweets, to his crazy shit. They're not paying attention to him putting in judges every single week, every single month. I am, and I'm like, wow, wake up. Wake up.
Maybe that's the genius behind his tweets. Right. We all consider it crazy, but
absolutely. Wizard of Oz, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. That's happening. And I'm like telling everybody, no, please pay attention. Pull the curtain over.
Yeah.
Maybe he's cleverer than we give him credit for.
He's devious and sneakier than people give him credit for. And in order to be proper deviant, you have to have some smarts. You know, you do, or you wouldn't get away with it, and you'd be called just dumb. Not he is that, but they used to call Reagan the Teflon president. That was his nickname, because nothing would stick. They would make it so that he would have probable deniability. He didn't know. He gave us he said, you guys handle it. We never told him. So everything just kind of slid off, and that was horrible. But he never said I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and you would not lose any voters. That would not have flowed. Like, that didn't happen. But this guy is the actual Teflon president. Nothing sticks so far. He just goes.
When he was saying stuff like that, I kept thinking maybe he's just playing a big joke on us, and he's wondering what he can say or do that will get him thrown out of the presidential race. And then he was like, "Oh shit, I'm becoming popular. I better get on with this."
Well, I mean, I think at this point he's really caught on that he's got to a lot of people. Well, if I say it's fine, right? If I do it and I said it, well, wasn't fine, well, then it's fine. Like, his base is very,
his
very
rallies,
still.
Mac, with a QAnon. People still show up to his things with QAnon on. They never got the memo that the husband and wife behind this was a fraud. They never got the memo that those two people aren't doing it anymore. It's been taken over by other crazy, They actually think that Trump and Mueller were working together to find stuff about Hillary and put her in jail. They believe it. He is sent from God. He is the great white hope, they call him. Black conservative Christians call him the great white hope in this country. It's just, my eye starts twitching and I feel like I'm having an allergic reaction.
I need something stronger than coffee, my God.
Welcome to America.
Hey, I'm just watching the giant dumpster fire. We've got our own problems, but yeah.
Yes, I've been watching. Hey, Jeremy Corbyn.
You're asking my opinion on him, aren't you?
and then we can wrap it up. Yeah. I'm really curious.
Well, to be honest, I find him. Gosh, I'm gonna get a lot of crap for this.
No,
I find him. Well, no, in the sense that because I consider myself more liberal-minded for a long time, but I find him a bit. What's the word? He's sort of like our Trump in that he's quite different to our usual politicians. In that a lot of our politicians, all went to Eton and things like that, and they're of not noble families, but families, usually moneyed families, and things like that, and things were expected of them. So there can seem a bit of a divide in terms of speaking for the people. So he's a bit more down to earth in that sense. I do find him wildly liberal in the sense that I think that there's some things that he wants which are wonderful, but I think I don't particularly agree with his ideas on immigration. And I think he could be a danger in the opposite direction and bring us to being perhaps far too liberal. But he's like, he shows up at Glastonbury and he's sort of down with the kids and all this sort of stuff. So he knows his audience, and that is refreshing. I'm not going to say it isn't. But I don't necessarily sort of agree with a lot of what he says. I think he is a bit too neoliberal, I suppose is the term.
Right.
Whether or not that ends up being the case when he gets in, because they tell us exactly what we all want to hear before they get in. I think that it should be a thing where a political, because obviously he does represent his party, but and there's this whole thing about anti-Semitic stuff now, and
I looked into that. I couldn't find it's the same with Illinois.
No, it's the smallest thing that's been blown out of proportion. So
of course.
But it's, it's something is a smear campaign from each side. They both do it. Everybody does it. But I think that a party should be held responsible to complete at least half of what they set out to do in their manifesto. Obviously, there can be changes in economics and things like that as time goes on and things occur. But to me, they should set about doing what they said they were going to do. And I think that he may end up getting in the next time there's a national vote and things. And it would be interesting to see what he does. But I think given just the landscape and things now when it comes to terrorism and things like that, I think his ideas regarding that are a bit troubling. And there are examples, I can't pull up any at the moment, but there are examples of him, sort of poo-pooing a lot of things, and he's spoken about Northern Ireland and things like that. And you can have a political stance on it, you can disagree with it, but somebody so high up in where he is should be more sensitive to the whole issue and not just try and be a rebel. He needs to understand things from both points of view. And I don't think he can understand why people would have a problem with it, conservative or otherwise. I don't know. He could end up being the maverick that we need and inspire real change. But I think he's a touch too liberal for my taste.
See, here in the States, he is considered the UK Bernie Sanders. Not neoliberal at all. In the States, Hillary Clinton is neoliberal. Joe Biden is neoliberal. So and I know it's all different. Your conservative is our Democrat. I know it's all different. It's just, I love to learn more and put it all together. And it helps me when watching news from UK. It just helps me understand the local perspective of, even though it's just your opinion, I do talk to many people and I do hear the same. I've heard him I've heard someone say he might just be the one we need, but he is a little bit far left for what UK is used to. But I have not heard him be called a neoliberal before, so that's interesting to me. But I am glad that you saw the anti-Semitic stuff for what it was, a smear campaign.
Yeah, it's funny. Every time Trump does something really awful, or says something really awful, like he said about the babies being murdered after being wrapped up, again, something demonstrably incorrect, and people were like, in the background. A couple of years ago, we had the whip, a head whip, or chief whip, I forget the term, in Downing Street or around Westminster. He was coming out of doing some work in his offices. And a lot of these places are obviously guarded and things like that by standing policemen and things. And he supposedly called one of them a pleb. Now, it's not a nice thing to say, but it's not the worst thing either. And it was a huge story. It went on for weeks. Plebgate, it was called. So there's the idea behind what we consider or what the British sort of tabloids consider a big story. And then there's Trump saying stuff like that. And it's just like,
grab him by the...
Yeah. It's not.
And our vice president is a younger associationist. Beat that, UK.
Oh God, yes, Mike Pence. I mean, everyone says, "Oh, get Trump out." Do you realize who would be in charge? He's worse somehow. Mike Pence.
Jesus and dinosaurs were best friends, according to our vice president.
Yep.
Interesting. Yep. I'm going to go to church just dressed as a dinosaur now, just.
Yeah. You know that the famous picture of the Jesus with the flowing hair and the white and blue robe holding the lamb? I'm sure you guys have seen the same picture, but he's holding the baby T-Rex. I think that is the funniest t-shirt, and I would wear that t-shirt all the time if I had it.
Yeah. Yes, I want it now. Yeah. That's going to be a Halloween costume. You can get those ride-on costumes, can't you? I'm just going to be dressed as Jesus up top. Business up top, pleasure down the bottom.
Oh my gosh, you're so much fun.
We need to have you back on sometime soon.
Yes.
I think we should have maybe a discussion about left and right politics in America and Europe. I think that would be really fun and enlightening for both of us. especially me, because I know nothing about anything ever. So it'd be great.
Well, I will leave you with this tidbit. So we obviously have Conservatives in power now, and I think it was last year, maybe the year before, they retracted. We used to have fox hunting in the UK that gentry would sort of enjoy. It wasn't an everyday thing. We didn't all do it.
Right.
But
that's awful. They're the cutest things on the
awful.
planet.
Exactly. It's an awful thing to be involved in. And then people obviously for years and years were campaigning to get this stopped. There was a ban. And then that ban has been lifted. I don't know to what extent, but the Conservatives, and I'm paraphrasing here, but perhaps we can research it, is that foxes or animals can't feel pain and don't have feelings, so it's okay. So we do have a level of idiocy involved in for all our high-born, well-educated people, they can still push things that are obviously demonstrably incorrect.
Mammals have nerves. Mammals have nerves.
5-year-olds understand that.
They hurt if they're cut or burned. Like, goodness gracious.
You ever tried to discipline a dog? Does it get upset?
Yeah.
Nope. We're not getting into it.
Next time. Yeah.
Done.
Yeah, you bring us your crazy religious nuts and we'll beat you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you got loads on me.
And I live in Florida, so I can literally start every sentence I ever wanted with a Florida man. You already know it. However that ends is not going to be good.
All of it's believable too. You could just make shit up, but I mean,
right,
even if you're making shit up, it's probably happening.
You would find it. Yeah.
Okay, we got to wrap this up.
Yes.
We are on the 2-hour mark. I don't know why. I don't know why we thought we could talk to Kelly in less than 2 hours.
Because we think we have superpowers.
I don't think I've ever talked to Kelly for less than 2 hours. This has been an absolute delight. Thank you for waking up early over there.
No worries. You're worth it.
So I hope you can come back on. I hope everyone enjoyed the talk tonight. Can you plug yourself real quick? Tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, Tropic Thunder 1. I'm on YouTube. It'll ask if you meant Tropic Thunder. Just click Tropic Thunder. I'm hoping if I get more popular, I'll start to sort of be above Robert Downey Jr.'s head in terms of the search results. So yes, Tropic Thunder on YouTube, and I'm sure you'll catch me on LEAH as well. So come along.
Cool. And you guys know who we are. We'll be down in the description box below.
Yeah.
So just find us there. You know where we are. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll see you again on Friday for our live show. And we have a special guest coming on. It is Jim Majors.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think we'll be doing a little bit of Bible bashing. So we haven't done enough religion stuff here. So we're gonna touch on that this week. So hopefully we see you there for that.
And
don't forget to check. Don't forget we have a Patreon now, so check that out. We'll leave a link below because we got that working now. So check that out. Because you guys didn't know that, so I'll mention that. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. And Christy?
Stay humanist for God's sake.